Good evening, disc golfers, and welcome to another episode of the 19th Hole with Eddie and Mike. I'm your host, Mike Dunn, and alongside me, my co-host, Eddie Wooters. Eddie, how you doing, baby?
What's going on, dog? We kind of switch roles a little bit.
Yeah, a little mix it up, mix and match. When you got a guy like this on your show, you got to keep it live.
You do, and we also got to make sure we give thanks to Farm DJ. That's P-H-A-R-M DJ. Alex B, thanks, homie, and Shando. You guys are going to hear that funky outro song. Shando did that for us years ago, man.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of love.
I tell you what an honor tonight, what a privilege, what a pleasure. Not only I consider this guy a friend of mine, but a role model and
like family.
A great father and, just an all-around great guy. So let's give a big welcome to this guy, Scott Stokely. Thanks so much, Scott, for being on the show.
How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here, man. This is a huge honor for us. I know it's a busy week. You playing that little tournament up down the road?
What's it called again? The Dynamic Discs Open.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm kind of exhausted today, actually, after my 2 throws before we got called for rain. I've never had a tournament where I've only thrown twice, but...
So tell us real quick what happened.
No, it was a great call by the staff. It's always tough being a tournament director because you have to make decisions. You can't make everyone happy. If you make a call, someone's unhappy.
100%.
But it was a downpour, which we can play through rain. But there was lightning, number one. But number two, some of the holes were inaccessible because of the rain.
The amount of water that came down.
Yeah, the holes across the creek. So they simply had to call it, and we're teeing off tomorrow at 7:30 to continue.
So
it's the right call.
Were you at Swope today?
We were at Swope.
Yeah.
Man, I tell you what. All right, well, at least I'll give you a moment to get your mental back together and prepared and ready for tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So hopefully we won't keep you too late tonight, Scott, and get
Fine.
home, get your sleep, eat your Wheaties, get up, do your exercises and stretches, and off you
about
go.
right.
Perfect. So, Scott, tell us, when did you start playing disc golf?
I played my very first round of disc golf on the world's first course when it was the only course in the world.
Was that
Oak Grove Park in Pasadena, California in 1970s.
That was the year of the bicentennial quarter.
True.
Yeah, I just thought of that.
Didn't think about that.
So you should probably collect a couple of those. You know what I mean?
I could.
I'll save any that I come across, but I literally we've been talking to Scott for a while, before this video, and I just realized that you started playing when they came out with the bicentennial quarter.
I did.
Good God,
So
you're getting
Scott,
old,
how
Scott.
old were you in 1976?
So I was 7. I didn't start playing every day until I was 11.
Okay, but you were first introduced to disc golf, the sport of disc golf, when there was one course, probably 1 or 2 molds period in disc golf discs to choose from back then.
No, there was no such thing as disc golf disc.
No, you're
Okay,
telling
so you were
ultimate.
throwing at a basket that was an ultimate disc or a freestyle?
Well, it's just a frisbee from a grocery store.
Yeah,
Regular old 110 gram.
Yeah, well, 119, the 141, the Super Pro, Masters. It was called frisbee golf because frisbee was, Whammo owned the trademark frisbee. Most flying discs were frisbees, but you didn't have to play with the frisbee. You just could play with any flying disc, but frisbee dominated.
Gotcha. Okay, so then you said 5 years later, you started, I guess, taking the sport more serious. What happened then?
So when I first played, I lived about 7 miles from the course, which when you're 7 years old, that's other side of the world.
Right, exactly.
But I was in a kind of blue-collar town, La Crescenta, and when I was 11, I moved to La Cañada, I lived about 300 yards from the course. And La Cañada was very rich, white, conservative. It wasn't blue-collar, and I didn't fit in. And it was, basically, I'll date myself here, but it was a John Hughes movie come to life. I went in La Cañada, that's where kids got convertible Corvettes for their 16th birthday. I remember distinctly, I this one memory of a girl getting a brand new convertible Volkswagen Rabbit for her 16th birthday and complaining to her friends about how her parents hated her.
Because it was a
Because it was a convertible Volkswagen. Yeah. So, anyways, that was the town I grew up in, and I didn't fit in. But right across the street from La Cañada was this place with a bunch of hippies, blue collar, working class, a lot of unemployed class, and that's the people that adopted me. I adopted them actually, but that's where I fit in. And I loved playing, but my dad had died when I was 7, and when I wrote my autobiography and when I started looking back, I realized I probably was looking for father figures at the time, and here's this whole
some
group,
guidance at least.
this whole group of these grown men that just took me in and made me one of their families. So
And they were all hucking frisbees.
yeah, everybody was playing frisbee golf.
Was there somebody, Scott, that stands out to you, maybe out of that group or around
sure.
that time frame, that was a huge influence for you to take disc golf from something more recreational to something that became, I don't know if I want to use the word professional, but yes, professional for you, where it was much more serious.
Yeah, well, because I mean, to me, it wasn't about the NBA or Major League Baseball or the NFL. It was about the Oak Grove Gophers Frisbee Golf Club. It was John Wintercorn and Steve Bentley, Joe Orsino, Jeff and Johnny Lissaman, Scott Zimmerman, Dan Roddick. Like, these are the rock stars to me. These are the players where I was like, I want to be like them. I didn't look at Steve Garvey and Davey Lopes and want to be like them. I wanted to throw over the trees of hole 1 like Steve Bentley did.
That's incredible. I love that you have the memories of the names of the people. And,
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure, were there any anything that stands out to this day to you that, like, one maybe a pointer or a tip that, you know, every time that situation happens that you still recall? You know, for instance, when I first started playing, I was throwing forehand, and an older gentleman came up to me and said something like, "You gotta use your jazz." You know,
That was
saying basically like, after you throw, your palms need to be facing up, not like this, turning your wrist over, and well, anyway, that was something that's probably why I need to take some lessons.
Right.
Right. No, but it's those memories. I know what you're talking about.
Was there one in particular, you know, from a technique standpoint that stands out?
Yeah, so the player that taught me the most about how to throw was Joe Orsino.
Okay.
He finished second place at the World Championships in 1983, I think, up in Santa Cruz, and he taught me all the basic throws. The X step, which was like, you got to remember, back in like the early 80s, it was kind of like, hey, I'm going to teach you the X step because we invented it last week. Right? And what we called a hook thumb at the time was now called a thumber. He taught me all the basic shots, and then I learned a lot about the mental game from Jeff and Johnny Lissaman, and the skill of throwing a frisbee. Scott Zimmerman was huge, and then Rick Schaefer was a project engineer at NASA that took me under his wing. He was the one my mom could trust me with, who took me to a lot of tournaments, my first out-of-state tournament. So it wasn't like the chapter of my book about the Oak Grove Gophers is called "Who Needs Just One Dad." So
So you were technically raised by
By the disc golf community.
See right here, the Oak Grove Gophers. That's why I got that.
That's
So,
awesome.
did you spend much time playing with maybe like Johnny Roberts or John Bird? Because I know
I knew them, but they were in Colorado.
they were out here, so you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I know I still know John, obviously, and I knew Johnny, but not well, not the way I did when the people I grew up with.
So let's talk real quick. I know outside of disc golf, within the world of frisbee, as you were growing up, you experimented and had a little freestyle activity, I believe, under your belt. Tell us a little bit about some of the memories you have outside of the disc golf world, but inside of the frisbee world.
Yeah, I mean, I to this day, I call myself a frisbee player, not a disc golfer. If I really was to like had to label myself on my tombstone. Um, so see, back in the early days, there was a sport called frisbee, and within the sport of frisbee, all these other offshoots started forming: frisbee golf, distance, freestyle, ultimate, double disc court. And then of course a lot of them that never really caught on, and Guts was obviously the first, well, not obviously, Guts was the first frisbee game. But back in the early days, you played everything. It was like basically being a decathlete. Like you might specialize in one thing, but you had to play everything. The biggest tournament of the year was the Whammo US Open, which was an overall tournament, all the events. So the old players, every old school player played more than one.
So you know how to throw a frisbee for freestyle. You know how to play old.
Yeah.
You know how to play disc golf.
You have to. Yeah, I mean, you had to back then if you wanted to compete.
Well, and all those shots come into play in disc golf. I mean, let's be honest. Like, throwing Ben and I and or the whole staff the last couple of days have been out there with a dog bite, and you can shape shots with those, and it really teaches you your angle control. Being able to throw those different kind of discs like that.
It is, but it's a double-edged sword because the skill of throwing a frisbee, there's a overlap to throwing a golf disc, but it's enough different where as soon as golf discs came out, a large percentage of frisbee players couldn't make the transition because you don't throw a golf disc the way you throw a frisbee.
You don't.
And so it's like you learn some skills, but at the same time, you also have to be able to relearn.
Yeah.
Like if I play any other disc disciplines, I don't throw anything like I throw a golf disc. It's completely an independent sport. So it's tricky.
So that being said, Scott, at what point then did you find yourself seeing a differentiation between the different frisbee sports and starting to migrate to disc golf?
Well, so disc golf is the one that caught on the most. If double disc court had been as popular as disc golf, and I could have chosen them, I'm not even sure I would have been a disc golfer. I mean,
Interesting.
it was disc golf was the avenue to playing frisbee for a living.
Was where the opportunities were.
Yeah, if there was overall tournaments every weekend and I could have done that for a living instead of just played disc golf, I would have played overall tournaments because I liked playing frisbee. But that wasn't an option. So disc golf was the chance to be able to play frisbee for a living. I call it frisbee as a generic term, disc sports. That's what disc golf allowed me to do. So I could keep within my love and have something that,
So how old were you when you decided I want to play something with a disc and try to make a profession of it, and then actually attempted to do that?
Yeah, I'll tell you the exact moment it happened. I was 20 years old. There had been 6 players who had gone out on tour. Glenn Whitlock, Steve Valencia, Dan Ginley, Jeff Lissaman, Johnny Lissaman, and Mike Williams, in that order. And so there was people making a living playing. I mean, it was, you're sleeping on people's floors, you're eating bread and bologna, you're hoping someone picks up the tab for lunch at a tournament, but they were making a living playing.
Right.
And so I had done 3 semesters of college because that's what you're supposed to do. And I was working graveyard shift at Kinko's. And I had earned a day off after several months of hard work, and I had a tournament coming up in a couple months. And I asked my boss for a Friday off so I could go to this tournament. And my boss starts arguing with me and starts, oh, what are we going to do? Your graveyards, how are we going to replace you? And I said, but I earned a day off, boss. I mean, in hindsight, he was probably 25, but he seemed like a grown-up at the time because I was 20. And I'm arguing with him, and I'm fighting with him, and I'm like, I just wanted to tell him, I don't care about Kinko's, I care about disc golf. I don't care about your company, I care about winning this tournament. That's what mattered to me. But I'm like battling this guy, and finally he gives me the day off. And at some point, I don't remember if it was that minute or later that day, but it hit me. I said, if I finish college, I'm gonna be doing the exact same thing in 10 years. I'll be being paid more money. But ultimately, someone else is gonna have control over my life. And that's when I said, I need to go out and tour. And within a few weeks, I gave my notice at work and decided to tour because I didn't want to do that. But my plan was, this is funny, my plan was I was still bought into the system. I still believed what I'd been programmed to believe, which was, well, at the end of 3 months after my tour, now I'll go get a job and go back to college because that's kind of what you have to do. Then I went out and played disc golf for a living for 3 months, and I went, oh, I'm in trouble. What am I? How do I ever go back to this thing that I was supposed to do now that I've been playing disc golf for a living? Like, I'm screwed. Like, I'm never going to be happy doing something else and not being free now that I've experienced it.
Oh my gosh, what a great story.
But yeah,
And so what year was this?
1993.
Okay, so 93. Okay, so you decide to make this decision. Start to go out on tour. Obviously, the tournament series is nothing like it is today. Nationwide, worldwide, something like Colorado, there's a tournament every single weekend. You don't have to drive more than 50 miles.
Yeah.
But back then, if you wanted to play an event every weekend, every other weekend, or as often as they were, you had to do some traveling. And so what was your original form of the Scott Stokely transportation?
Oh God, I left in this pickup truck built in the 1800s.
I heard about those. They had the
Horse and
stone wheels, right?
Yeah, they were square too. It was pre-wheel.
Oh, that was pre-wheel.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and it was just this old junky truck. We had a camper shell in the back. I ended up staying in it one night, the whole tour, because I hadn't realized that everywhere I went, I had a place to stay.
Okay, I mean, beautiful.
That was the first tour vehicle.
You went out on tour, and do you recall back in '93 who was the toughest competition that you ran into that year?
I mean, in '93, Climo was the 2 or 3 time world champion at that point.
Yeah.
So he was literally. I mean, the '90s was Ken, right? Obviously, and then throughout the '90s, different people kind of played this game of who's going to be best or top 5 this year. But Ken was always up here.
Always on top.
So that was the most competition. But Ken also didn't tour. Ken lived in Clearwater. So it was Jeff Moulton. The goal was to be on the Can-Am series. The Can-Am series was the biggest series in the sport. It was the first thing that resembled a tour, because that's where 10 tournament directors got together and said, well, hey, let's schedule these events one weekend after the next, and let's do it geographically so people could go out on tour. That's what the 5 of the 6 previous people had done. Before that, the PDGA Tour wasn't a tour. It was a series of sanctioned events. 2 tournaments in a state on the same weekend happened. The 2 biggest tournaments of the year on opposite ends of the country, 2 weekends in a row. It wasn't a tour. Tournaments. Can-Am series stepped up and said, let's make a tour. So it was a 10 tournament series, minimum of $2,500 added per event, which was insane back then.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn good today.
And I battled Jeff Moulton the whole series. I ended up beating him in the series, even though I think we went head to head 5-5 or something like that, but I got him a point or 2. But I mean, we were peers. So, I mean, we were neck and neck. So he was my biggest competition that first.
And that's just great stories. So that begins to lead into your battle with Climo, and this went on for many years. And we'll talk about some of the other records you held. But one of the things that eludes you today was you were just never able to take him down in those world championships. And if you look back now, Scott, and this is probably a little in depth, but are there a few things that you could outthrow him, you could outdrive him? In my mind, it was some of the mental game back then, and I feel that a different Scott, maybe in today's world, would play some of these shots differently and wouldn't have put yourself in some of the precarious positions. Tell me what your thought process is to why you didn't take him down back in the 90s.
Because he was better.
I mean, I guess that's a simple answer.
I heard Charles Barkley told the story once. His daughter asked him when she was little, how come he never beat Michael Jordan? And his answer was, because he was better than me. And I was like, no. I mean, in hindsight, I'm a better finesse player now than I was then. I didn't have, my backhand finesse wasn't as good. That cost me strokes. You know, like there's, you know, like I could look at flaws in my game, but when it came down to it, Ken was better than us.
So what made Ken better? Was it his putting? Was it his approach shots? Was it his mental game? I mean,
He was
you knew you could outdrive him.
He was very well. No, but I didn't outdrive him. I could outdrive him on a long hole, but overall,
Well, that's what I mean.
courses were 5,400 feet. They were a bunch of 300-foot shots, which was not my strength. I had a game much more. Like my skill set was much more aligned with a modern game.
Right.
You know, a 10,000-foot course, I would have
thrown a 1,000-foot hole.
when I'm out throwing every single player in the world by 150 feet. Like I was gonna, like I probably would have done really well on these long courses. On the short courses,
Right.
I didn't.
100%.
But the thing about Ken is he played virtually mistake free. Like he didn't miss 20-foot putts. When he bogeyed, he didn't double bogey. If he's supposed to get up and down in two, he got up and down in two. Like he just basically did. Like he didn't screw up.
Well, and he'd been touring for a while at that point.
No, I don't think Ken ever went on tour. He always went to tournaments and then went back home. He'd go out for a week or two.
Right, but I mean that's what I'm saying. He'd been playing tournament. This maybe the tournament scene is what I should say.
Okay.
Maybe a bit longer. So
I've been around
same
longer.
time.
No, I've been playing much longer.
Wow.
But yeah, no,
So he just had that mind. Just had it.
yeah, it's just one of those things where like if like world championships are 9.5 rounds. If you have two bowlers and one of them has an average that's 12 pins higher than the other, then the one with the worst average can win in a game. But if you total the scores after 9.5 games of bowling, that person with the higher average is very hard to beat. It's called regression to the mean. The longer you play, the more things settle out where they should. I led a world championships after 4 rounds. A lot of people did. But a better player after 9.5 rounds, tough to beat.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, he was better. And the funny thing is, and I thought about this a lot as I read my book. I mean, I remember like crying. I mean, after like I finished one world championships 4 strokes behind him, and I walked off and I just like got by myself and just was sobbing. I'm like, I was just devastated. But now when I look back, I'm proud of it. There were about 1 million players playing disc golf in the mid 90s or late 90s, and I was the second best. Like I'm not ashamed. But at the time, that was not something that I was happy about.
Well, yeah.
Like it hurt. It hurt bad.
Yeah, and I'm sure it did. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that didn't hurt so bad, like some of the world records that you used to hold back then. I believe the first world record that you ever held was for the longest backhand.
Yeah, the longest throw of a flying disc. I set that in 1995. 656 feet with an X clone, and then
Where was that at, Scott?
that was in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Okay.
Wow,
That's even more impressive, really.
at the Grateful Disc.
Discraft X clone, which is now out of production. What would you say is most like an X clone in today's world?
A putter. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean it was like
No, I mean people would be curious.
no, it had the flight characteristics of a not so overstable Firebird. It was just an overstable disc, but I mean it was probably a speed 6. I mean it didn't.
That was a fast disc.
At the
back
time, it was a
then,
fast. I mean for sure.
I mean, in the 15 years I've been selling discs, just from when we first got into the game to today, back then, a lot of these discs that used to say ultra high speed driver or whatever the term was, now it says fairway driver.
Yeah, it would be. It would have been
They all got outgrown.
It was a slower fairway driver. I mean, it really was. And then I broke my record with an XL in 1998, and that's probably like I think they're like a speed 7. But that was a step up from. That's why I call it X clone a speed 6 because I think the XL is a speed 7 and XLs were faster. It was just a different. It was great. It was perfect. And then so I set that record 693 feet.
Was that the same year?
No, that was 1998.
Okay, so a couple of years later, you set that record, and it beat your own world record.
I beat my own world record.
Which is pretty darn rad.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Somebody decided to come in and beat your record.
Yeah, Chris Vogt broke my record in is there 2000 or 2001? I don't even remember. But he broke my record And that's the record. It wasn't longest throw of a backhand. It's the longest throw of a flying disc. That's the only record that really mattered to me, because that's the one. Like I have records like the world field goal distance record. I mean, those are just silly. But the record for the Guinness record for the longest throw of a flying disc, he broke that. At the time, by the time that happened, my back was worn out. I wasn't going to. When he broke the record, I wasn't going to break it. Like I just wasn't throwing as far as I used to. So I had 5 throws left, and I said, well, I still want to have a record, and I've never even attempted the sidearm record. But I mean, it was pretty much a given that I was going to break it if I did it. So I went and threw 5 shots for the sidearm record, and it set the world sidearm record. And the funny thing was, because
How far was that?
568
568.
with another Speed 7 disc, the X2. The funny thing is that I quit for 13 years, and when I came back, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, you're the dude with the sidearm record." I'm like, "Well, I used to," and they're like, "No, you still have it." I'm like, "There's Speed 13 discs out at this point." I'm like, "Serious?" I mean, it's since been broken. It's up in the deck, but
that lasted for the longest of all.
I had no idea that, like, I mean, in fairness, that's a record that probably could have been broken by a number of people. There's people that throw a sidearm farther than I did, that threw harder than I did. Like I threw like in the high 80s when I pitched baseball. So there's clearly people that throw a lot faster than that. So that record was kind of like, I don't know. I'm humbled by the fact that, like, it could have been broken by lots of people maybe.
Right. So let's talk about this real quick. Speed of disc. We have a massive influx of newer players in the sport, and being a retail store owner, I spend a lot of my day trying to explain to newer players that a speed 13 or 14 does not equate to you throwing the disc further. So talking to our viewers,
It
Scott,
flies
in
less
just
far.
a quick 30, 60 seconds, what's the best way for a newer player to figure out where is that sweet spot? Because I do believe there's a sweet spot where you're going to find your max distance.
I mean, if you're not throwing, I mean, I would say around, you want to be up to like 400-ish feet with a single-digit speed disc before you go high speed.
Like a putter.
And 400's not like, that's not like the elite level. I mean, 400's pretty realistic with good technique after a couple years.
Absolutely.
But up until then, yeah, the high speed discs don't fly farther.
They don't.
In fact, they fly less far because they become so overstable at low speeds that at slower speeds, they actually don't penetrate forward, they fade hard. And when a disc fades hard, it loses forward momentum. So a straight flying fairway driver will fly farther for 90-something% of players in the world.
So explain then, because I'm sure people are going, well, then why do they have a 13 or 14 speed? When are professional players or just average players utilizing 13s and 14s?
Because they fly farther at high speeds.
At high speeds.
At high speeds. I only carry one double-digit speed disc in my bag.
And which is it?
The Raider.
And what do you use that for?
I use the Raider when I need to get extra distance, when I'm not playing with out of bounds because it's less predictable. A fairway driver is more predictable. So the vast majority of holes at the Dynamic Discs Open at Jones Gold, I'm throwing a Felon because the Felon will stay on the fairway. I'll sacrifice 100 feet of distance to be on the fairway all day. All day. That's what I'll do.
And so is your mindset in today's day and age, when the holes are 300 feet, are you throwing a putter then?
Yeah. So the general philosophy is you want to throw the slowest disc for the hole.
The slowest disc that will reach the basket.
Now that's a generalization. So here's the basic formula. I'll just make up the numbers for you. So this is all just off the cuff, made up. But if you throw the exact right amount of power, every disc goes the distance you're trying to throw it. So it's not about when you throw it correctly. It's about when you're off. There's a range of human error. So again, just making up the numbers. But you're on a 200-foot hole and you accidentally throw 10% too hard on a 200-foot hole. That putter flies 210 feet. The mid-range, 10% too hard, flies 220 feet. The fairway driver flies 235 feet. The high-speed driver flies 250 feet. So basically, that same 10% human error, the slower the disc, the less you're penalized for it. That's why you want to throw slow discs. They don't require as much precision. The margin for error is larger the slower the disc.
And the reason I brought that up too, in my head, I was thinking another reason is also there's more predictability in a putter and an approach disc than high-speed distance driver.
Yeah, it has a truer flight. But I think I still view the margin for error as the biggest factor, just because.
Okay. Yeah. So all right. So let's start talking about what happened, Scott. You played professional disc golf for how many years before you decided to take a break?
I mean, I cashed at my first pro major when I was 15, so 15 years.
So up and from 15 to about 30, and then at 30 years old, what did Scott Stokely decide to do? Obviously, you decided it was time to make a change.
No, my daughter was born. I wanted to be home to raise my daughter.
Well, okay, so there you go. So the change was a family change.
Well, yeah, because I wasn't going to be on tour with my daughter not being raised by me. So I co-parented with my daughter's mom, and good relationship. My daughter has the best mom in the world. So we did a good job co-parenting for many years.
Awesome. And so were you missing the sport?
No, I didn't think about it. It hurt. I didn't follow the pro tour and I didn't go to tournaments. I didn't show up to shake hands or say hi to everybody. When I dropped out, I was gone. I gave away my disc. I was done. It was painful to go, to not be able to compete. And I wasn't going to show up and try to play for top 10. That doesn't do anything for me. So if I wasn't competing to win I didn't have to win a big tournament or a major tournament, but I had to be competing to win a major tournament to be happy.
So here's a guy that, plays disc golf for a couple months, his first season, then he's telling himself, how am I going to go back to the real world? How did you do it?
Oh, because they invented this thing. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called, God, what's it? Internet. Internet.
I had a feeling.
Yeah.
I just had a feeling.
It's just when you pop open your flip phone, it's that. Anyways, so no, because of the internet, I could still be free. I started building websites, started working for myself, doing online marketing, got really into affiliate marketing early on, did really, really well for a lot of years. And so I didn't go get a job.
Well, I mean, it's a job, Scott.
Well, no, absolutely. No, I worked like 70 hours a week. It's not a job because not one single day did I have to work if I didn't want to. It's not a job. It's work.
Great way to look at it. I tell you, it's a great way to look at it.
For me, my entire life, everything I live for is about freedom. It's not having restrictions to cap what I do. Tell me what I can do. Having another adult give me permission to something, I can't even wrap my head around it. So the idea was I could fall into this thing where I could build websites, and even though I was working way harder, way more hours than I would have at a job, nobody was telling me what to do.
Except the landlord and the power guy and the milkman, still had to make the money.
I still have to make the money.
There's always somebody, no matter,
Right. But
so you're raising your daughter, Scott. You building yourself a career, something you seem to enjoy. You kind of making your own schedule. What happened?
So basically, here I'll give the quick story. Which, by the way, you happen to have been there for this, but I'll give you the story. So business went great for years. I made a lot of money for years. I mean, didn't even look at my bank account for probably 8 years. I mean, I just was killing it. And then things changed with the internet. The dot-com bubble burst. The internet kind of, the businesses that I was in started getting shipped overseas, blah, 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 right? Nothing unusual that, 500,000 people didn't go through, but business started failing. So I decided around 2013 or 12, 13, that amphetamines would be this great way of so I wouldn't have to sleep. I could actually get more work done so I could save my business. Those were my motives when I started. And it turned out, I wasn't aware of this, no one told me, but apparently when you're under the influence of drugs, you make worse business decisions, not better. They didn't, the local dealer never told me that. So anyways, I had a very, very short period. I mean, like when I was competing, I would drink kale for breakfast. I mean, I was all focused on it. I'll never, aside from when I was a kid and I dabbled, I had no problems with drugs or anything, but I had these wonderful motives to start doing something that I thought could allow me to work more, but as happens with drugs, they began to take over, and then it became more about doing the drugs than about why I was doing the drugs. Then the focus became the drugs. Yeah. It's a process. I mean, anybody with a substance abuse history can tell you about this. So things went really badly for about 8 months. I mean, we're talking like it spiraled downhill. And you know this story, but I'll share this with everybody. It's my favorite story in all of disc golf. And I'll try not to cry because you were part of this. And actually, it's funny, I've shared this story, but not without you here. So basically, I lost my house. House was foreclosed upon. My wife left me, but it ended badly. She was the love of my life. Everything was just in the pooper. My life.
That's what happens with drugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every time.
Oh no, for sure. And that's where it was. And I was the biggest loser who ever lived. I was the biggest nobody. Nobody could possibly love me. Why would my daughter love me? I'm just a piece of shit. Like, I hated self-loathing. Had thoughts of suicide. I mean, I was at the bottom. Like, everything in my life had failed. And I ended up talking to Dave McCormick at Gateway because I wanted some way to try to make some money and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, go talk to some stores. And I wandered into your store, Fly Green.
Remember that day?
And I was standing outside the door of Fly Green, and when I was outside the door, hadn't played disc golf in 13 years. I'm standing outside the door, the biggest piece of shit, biggest loser, biggest low-life person in the entire world, biggest nobody could love. I walked in the door, I open up the door to Fly Green, and there's a poster of me on your wall with my autograph on it. What? I'm like, is that? No. And the bear was in the store. Bear goes, dude, you're Scott Stokely. And he runs to the back, and I hear him in the back, Scott Stokely's in the store. And as he's saying this, there's two customers in the store. They're like, dude, you're Scott Stokely. Can we get your autograph? And I'm like, wait, aren't you aware that I'm a loser? Like, aren't you aware that my wife, that I just went through a divorce? I'm a piece of shit. Like, haven't you heard that my house was foreclosed on because I was doing drugs? And like, apparently not, right? And you guys came out, and then next thing you know, I'm being surrounded by you guys telling me like, oh my God, you're my hero. I look up to you. And it was the first time in several years I wasn't a loser. I was Scott Stokely. I was a professional disc golfer. I was someone people looked up to. And that moment, but that moment helped save my life. And so I walked out of the store, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not a loser. And then about 5 minutes later, I'm like, well, yeah, I am. I need to go get drugs. Like, it doesn't happen like that. But I had the seeds planted, and I went, I need to do something. I need to go out on tour. I like the way that felt. That felt the way drugs made me feel. Right? Like, and because when I had drugs, I wasn't a loser. I felt on top of the world. That's the way drugs work.
Of course.
So anyways, it took a couple weeks. and I was like, well, what am I going to do? How do I quit doing drugs? And I was like, well, I could just stop doing them. Well, that's not going to work. There's no way I'm stopping. It's like, shit, how am I going to get off this stuff? And I was like, oh, wait a second. I have warrants in 3 counties, just traffic warrants. But you go to one county, you wait 3 or 4 days to go to court, then you have to wait 3 or 4 days to transfer to the other county. And I'm like, well, if I go to jail, that'll get me off the drugs. Oh boy, kicking drugs in jail, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, this is gonna suck. But I wanted to get off the drugs so bad, and I wasn't gonna be able to stop on my own. So I went out to the, oh, you might have even drove me at this point, I don't know, but I went out to the, because I started hanging out in the shop.
Definitely.
And you knew I was in bad shape.
Yeah, I don't think,
You didn't know
at that
the
point you
details.
hadn't told me the details. We just knew something was wrong.
Something was wrong, yeah.
We knew something was wrong.
Yeah. So I went to the courthouse and I said, oh boy, this is going to suck. And I did as much drugs as I could possibly do without overdosing practically. I mean, I'm like, oh, it's going to be a long, like, whatever. And I just put a bunch of drugs in my system, literally threw what I had left in the trash can, which is not easy to do. Walked into the courthouse just as high as, and then just was like, I have warrants, take me to jail. And I still remember like the next 12 hours in jail were just awesome. And until the drugs wore off.
Oh, Scott.
And then next thing you know, it was just hell on earth. But even just 3 weeks, you physically get over the withdrawals in a couple days. And then next thing you know, you start eating 3 squares, right? You start eating every day, and then you're off the drugs. And
You get regular sleep.
You get regular
a
sleep.
routine.
Yeah, and it was like I was in for like 3 weeks. It was just traffic stuff. I mean, but when I got out, I was like, I really, really want to get high, but I had just enough distance away from it where I'm like, I think I'm going to go to Fly Green instead.
Yeah, baby.
It's true.
I love that story, Scott.
So that's how I came back to the sport. That's 100% true story. And then the part that added to the story that I think was great was I'm like, why didn't you go out on tour? Well, I don't have any money to go on tour. I don't have any discs. I don't have anything. And you're like, well, I'll give you the discs and I'll give you all the equipment you need. Oh, okay, cool. Now I have the discs in a bag, but what am I going to do? I don't have a vehicle. I don't have anything. I have nowhere to live. So I call up Barry Schultz in North Carolina. I say, hey, Barry, I haven't talked to you in 15 years. I'm getting back into disc golf. And I told him the whole story. I told him what I was doing. He's like, oh, dude. He goes, me and Brian McCree have a house here. You can live with us. We live on a disc golf course in North Carolina. And I said, cool. I said, I don't have any money, Barry. Barry says, I'm not asking you for money. And I said, how long can I stay? And he says, as long as you need to. Just get here. So you gave me the money for the bus ticket and like $40 to eat on the way. Which I ran out of like halfway there, by the way.
You eat like 2 Happy Meals.
Yeah. But I get out to North Carolina, and on the way there, I'm on my phone, and I message Chuck Connolly, who runs 40 tournaments in North Carolina, and Chuck Connolly says, I said, hey Chuck, I'm back into the sport, and I need to play tournaments because I have no way of making any money, but I have no money to enter tournaments. And Chuck says, oh, well, I'll enter you in all the tournaments. Keep whatever prize money you win. Okay,
so I mean, I guess it shows you, Scott, the
back.
interpretation of all your disc golf family and friends of what a big loser you were to them and to us and to everybody else.
Yeah.
So I guess man, you really were when I met you, you were at the bottom of the barrel, and it's just so good to see you today, kicking butt. Whenever I see you, big smile cracks on my face. You got an awesome woman by your side, kind of taking care of you, and it's kick butt.
Well, I mean, it's cool. It came around twice. Once when you were a youngster, got you into it. The disc golf community kind of saved you.
Yeah.
At that point when you needed it, and then again as you grew up and like you said, you hit your rock bottom, and it was the disc golf again that.
The 2 times in my life that I've failed at life is when I got away from the disc golf and the Frisbee community.
Yeah.
And it's actually the reason why I got my disc golf knuckle tattoos, because they tell you you're not supposed to get these because they can hurt your career opportunities or whatever. But the reason I got them was when I got this, I decided that I was never going to leave the sport again, but also I wanted that to be the first thing you saw when you saw me. That this is who I am. part of the package, period. That was my wedding ring to the sport. But I wanted everybody to know that I didn't want to be able to like cover it up to get
That
a job.
doesn't work though, because I still see your smile first when I see it.
So
So
Scott,
that didn't work.
just for a little, free publicity on my own right. This is selfless. Tell us about this tattoo on your forearm.
Oh, that was a mistake on my part. That did not. So the thing about that is that I was trying to get back into the sport and trying different avenues and different approaches.
And I was right there with you. And I'm not gonna lie, Scott and I together. Boy, you want to get a couple of guys coming up with some crazy ideas.
Oh, it's a lot.
We were doing it together, and so
it was a great thing. I love it.
One of our ideas was that we were going to start making discs together, Scott and I. And so Scott I believe you came up with that concept.
Did it start as a comic line first? It was a comic book.
No, we just that was just how Scott and I talked about it. Our disc line was going to have a storyline behind it too.
Yeah. And
our discs were all going to be comic characters along with
double entendre.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess we realized it's a little tougher than it looked at that time to get out there and be competitive, and we made a little notch out there. Yeah. If anybody wants any AK-47s, White Widows, KGBs, Pure OG,
yeah, but and that's probably why you two get along so well, is because not that line. It's because you guys don't quit. I met Mike kind of the same way, like entrepreneurship. We're always the three of us guys up right now on the screen. We are the guys that just don't stop believing in ourselves. Maybe for a second, but then you get it back. And Mike's same way. Mike's had the longest running disc golf shop in the state of Colorado, probably one of the longest running ones in the nation. It's definitely up in the top of the largest now. I've been in there and seen the amount of it. So what I'm saying is we just don't quit. And so that's what I like. That's why I like that line of disc. It was just one of the things that you guys just did, again, just like, what, this be cool. I'm going to do it. And I appreciate that about, both of you guys.
That's actually like part of the, if you want to be because I've just been an entrepreneur my whole life, and like number one, you can't listen to anybody.
No.
And number two, you have to believe in your ideas
before anybody.
Before and during everybody telling you it's a bad idea.
That's right.
But and then with that you fail. You fail, win. Fail, win. Fail. But those wins are money.
Yeah, it's like why people play disc golf, because you might play a horrible round, but in that whole round you've got that one shot that you'll never you won't forget. That's the shot that brings you back, and it's the same way with business or being an entrepreneur. It's you get that one good money shot, and
so Scott, here we are. It's 2021. We've just went through, and we're still going through the coronavirus pandemic. The whole world kind of turned upside down last year, came to a standstill. But the sport of disc golf was like the perfect. It was the perfect fit for all of this. We had our social distancing. We had a chance for different generations to get out and hang out together outside. We had a chance for people to do something economically very affordably.
Right.
And I guess both you and I are pretty fortunate to have been involved in the sport and the timing. And so tell everybody what you were doing for the last year and what you plan on doing for the rest of this year, and how people can be involved.
Oh, God. So my emphasis is on teaching now at the moment, although I have some projects in the works I'll be announcing shortly. But I'm running full-day seminars all across the country, 42 of them scheduled, all of them sold out, so those are booked, but I'm about to announce 30 more on the Rocky Mountain and West Coast. These are full-day disc golf seminars. I do afternoon clinics all across the country, competing in tournaments every weekend. My audio biography is out on print book and audiobook.
And on the top 10 Amazon bestseller list?
Yeah, I think it's like the Kindle version was number 6 for golf biographies. It's doing well. I mean, it's got 5 stars, and it's I'm happy. But the audiobook came out last week. That's the exciting part. I read it. I spent weeks in studio trying to do a good enough job that the engineer could come in, Will McCaskill, and actually make it sound good. Like all I had to do is get it up to like a C- level, and then he came in and gave it now it's like a B+.
There's a lot going. So let's talk about the new disc that you dropped. Reach under your seat, Scott, because we brought up one of them. This is one of the.
Oh, you got one of these new prototypes?
I got one.
Oh man, these are hard to come by.
Oh, no. This?
Yeah.
Is this it?
Yeah. No. Let's see that tour stamp you have there.
Oh my
Can
God.
can you show the viewers? So for those of you who don't know, Scott just got picked up by. Tell him, Scott.
Oh, apparently I'm picked up by
That's Chinette.
Chinette hot dogs?
Chinette paper plate. The
Oh, the
disc is
Chinette
actually
paper plates.
the hot dog. Actually, can you give us the run numbers on it? Hold this. I don't think they can see that, Scott. What are you working with here?
I am sponsored by
Chinette.
Chinette.
Yeah. And this is the new hot dog.
Yeah, so Chinette is. I mean, they've been so supportive over the years. Like they never let me go when I was down. They gave me space to work with my family and 100%.
And I mean, were they there when you needed a place to put your hot dog?
So they were there for me. No, actually, both my hot dogs, because this is 2021. Monogamy's dead.
Right. You're right. And so, Scott, does this particular disc hyzer?
No, it flies perfectly straight.
It does. Can you just give us a little, right towards, yeah.
Towards the camera.
Oh wow. You weren't
So,
kidding.
It's good,
when
right?
are these coming out?
These are coming out in 2027.
Okay.
A lot of R&D involved.
No, we're just having fun though. But no, we're proud. That was an idea we had, and we had to run with it.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Because honestly, the joke's on us because you could probably throw that plate farther than any of us can throw it.
No, that's actually true.
I mean, I'll challenge you.
I love
All right, speaking of challenges, Mike, take us.
You know what? Honestly, we wanted to have a little lightheartedness, Scott, before we got serious, because on our show we love to talk disc golf.
Yeah.
We love to talk to the disc golfers, get to know them inside and out. But last night, live on the show, we had 2018 World Champion Greg Barsby on, and Greg
Hold on,
challenged
Greg,
you.
Greg what? Barsney? What is it? Is it Greg Barsby?
Barsby.
Barsby.
Greg Barsby.
Greg Barsby is a good player.
Oh, he's a great player. In all seriousness, and I want to maybe change this a little bit. I haven't said anything to staff, but there was a $1,000 bet thrown at you from Barsby last night. But I think to mix this up and make it more fun, if you choose to accept your mission, maybe that $1,000 goes to the winner's choice of charity.
Okay, so
Oh, here it comes.
So I've heard Greg Barsby. I'm actually a big fan of Greg Barsby, and I'm trying to think of the strongest compliment I can possibly give to him because I am a fan. Greg Barsby's sidearm is nearly as good as mine.
Well, the challenge wasn't
It's all for
I
you.
mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, there's
Forehand
no big.
sidearm challenge.
Greg doesn't want to play me sidearm because he has nothing to lose. What's he going to do? Beat a 51-year-old man? I mean, well, he won't. But I mean, the best case scenario, he beats a senior citizen,
Which is illegal in most
which
states.
means nothing.
That's illegal in most states, by the way.
But if I beat him, which I will.
You know what? We definitely want to keep it lighthearted and friendly. So
I'm a big fan of Greg. Greg came.
we do want to make this happen. Mike and I have talked about it. We talked about it with staff. I don't know where it's going to happen.
I would love to do some kind of. I would love to do a charity match against Greg Barsby.
100%.
Greg Barsby has a great sidearm. It's almost as good as mine, and honestly, and I think it would be a very competitive match. I think he would give me a good run.
Oh, I
his
think it would
thought,
be super fun.
100%, but his thought is all, again, and I said this last night, his thought is all in the wrong spot. Like, he's worried about Scott when he should be worried about my putters. That's what the challenge is.
the thing that I think is so great is that I'm being called out. People are and people are punching up, calling me out.
So they're recognizing you right now. Is that what you're saying?
I'm a huge fan
It'd
of
be
Greg.
great. It'd be a lot of fun.
Greg's one of the people that came to my. There's a lot of players out there that came to my clinics as kids when I was doing the teaching back in the '90s. Greg Barsby, Nate Sexton, Garrett Gerthy, David Wiggins. Like, there's a lot of these.
That explains why all these guys are throwing so far.
Yeah, a lot of these.
Those are all the bombers.
Yeah, and so like I love that there's a generation of players that I played a part in.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm a huge fan of Greg, and Greg has a great sidearm. So if he wants to do a challenge match, I think it would be.
I think it'd be fun.
incredibly
I think we
competitive.
do it for charity.
Yeah,
I
I
think
do
it'd be
everything
awesome.
I do for
And
charity.
then the 19th hole will be there. We'll come out and we'll film it. It'll be a lot of fun.
We'll make it happen.
The winner can buy my entire staff dinner. That sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Wow. I tell you what, no. So I think we'll talk about this in some upcoming episodes. Obviously, putting the timing together to make this all happen, but it would be an awful lot of fun. And I think it'd be a great chance to showcase two of
Two
the
legends.
finest
Absolutely.
disc golfers in the game and best sidearm throwers. And so,
That's fair.
All right, well, we're coming up on just about an hour of our time here with Scott Stokely. It doesn't seem like it, but time is moving fast when you listen to somebody that's been in the sport as long as Scott. I've had a
going to the
great
power
time.
round?
Let's jump to the power round, Mike. And again, why don't you're our host tonight. Why don't you jump us off here?
Power round, like questions, like
We're going to
questions?
ask you.
Just bam,
We're going to
bam,
ask
bam,
you
bam.
about 20 questions, and you're going to give us the fastest answer that you come with.
Oh, I'm going to dazzle you with my wit.
I have a feeling you are.
Hold on, one more drinky coffee.
Yeah, please.
Just so I have my A game. All right, let's hear it.
All right, here we go. Scott, what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning?
First thing I do in the morning is I scratch right here because your whiskers are tickling me.
Thank you, Scott.
What's the weirdest way you've ever been woken up?
The weirdest way I've ever been woken up is I was once staying at your house when a woodpecker was pecking on your chimney. Take that for what it's worth.
Scott, what's the best Halloween costume you've ever had?
The best Halloween costume I ever had? Oh my God. I one time dressed, no, that's not, I can't talk about that one. The best, oh my God.
Okay, Scott.
I'm stumped. I went as Kurt Cobain one time with an exit wound. Not funny.
Oh my! How many bones have you broken?
Ow.
I've broken my arm and a couple fingers. No, my arm a couple times and a finger.
3 times. That's a good answer.
Scott, how many times have you grown your own garden?
Actually, to be honest with you, it's 2021. Men don't grow gardens anymore, Mike.
Fair enough answer.
Boxers or briefs?
Neither.
Scott, give us your 4 favorite seasons of the year.
My 4 favorite seasons. I would say paprika, basil, nutmeg, and thyme.
You didn't even mention salt or pepper.
No, God, no. That is so. I'm not really the.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve. God, I have to just narrow it down to one.
God is a pet peeve for you?
Possibly. My biggest. I have to narrow it down to one.
Just one. Off the head. This is power questions, Scott.
Don't scrape your plate with a metal fork, please. Please don't do that.
And finally, Scott, what do you putt with?
The Berg from Castaplan.
And what's your approach disc?
Oh, I got multiple approach discs. So I like the Bow Bob from AGL, the Piwaka Waka, and I love the Harp.
What's your go-to fairway driver?
That one.
And your go bomber?
The Raider.
Raider all day long.
Yeah.
Last question of the show. Scott Stokely, what is your favorite disc golf talk show?
My favorite disc golf talk show is the Scott Stokely podcast.
What?
Hey, everybody, thank you
on,
so
man.
much for watching tonight.
Thanks,
We
brother.
got legend Scott Stokely with us. Scott, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love you, brother.
I love you guys too. Very much.
And
Alright.
you know what? Make sure you follow us, like us,
Hit that
all that
subscribe
good
button
stuff.
on the YouTube
Subscribe.
channel.
Please share this with your friends and family. Watch it over and over and over again. And stay tuned for more information on the Stokely Barsby Challenge.